No!
How about this? The U.S. Park Police are...
Let's start by storming Blackgate!
What's going on, everyone? So thank you for clicking on this video. This is, of course, part of a series where I focus on a specific director and rank that director's work from worst to best. This is, of course, just including their films, not including TV shows, short films, music videos, none of that, just their films. Done such directors in the past as Tim Burton, David Fincher, David Lynch, Wes Anderson, the list goes on. This is, of course, me focusing on John Lee Hancock, who you might not be familiar with his work, but he's done 7 films, and so I will be ranking his work, number 7 being his worst, number 1 being his best, and of course, my opinion. So, all that exposition aside, let's get started. Kicking things off with number 7 is The Highwaymen, which stars Kevin Costner and Woody Harrelson. I was looking forward to this movie when it came out, but I just never got around to watching it until watching it specifically for this reason of ranking his work. I was curious about it, though, because, you know, obviously it's the other perspective of Bonnie and Clyde, like with everything that happened with that. But I can't lie, the movie I found to be quite dull and predictable, cliched. It's solid in terms of the filmmaking, but there's nothing really other to report back home from that other than that. If I want to know the story of Bonnie and Clyde, although it is sensational, obviously I would still choose the 1967 film, no questions asked, because that movie actually is really good. So that was my number 7. My number 6 is The Blind Side, which I can't lie, I haven't seen in quite some time, but in retrospect, I don't think I would like this movie the way I did as an early teenager. See, as an early teenager, I remember watching it, and I remember thinking it was good, but that I probably wouldn't watch it again. Several years later, I then watched it, and I thought it was okay. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I think Sandra Bullock's performance is good, but besides that, there's really nothing to report home. Obviously, this is a white savior movie. It goes without saying. And to be honest, I think the actual story is intriguing. It was just the way that it was directed and written that I had issues with, as well as, again, the filmmaking in this case, unlike The Highwaymen, in this case, the filmmaking is pretty conventional, and that's kind of a shame. It's not a bad movie per se. Like, if you enjoy the movie, I'm not gonna be like, oh, you can't like the movie. It's like, I get why some people would like it. Just for me personally, it was a missed opportunity. That's why it's number 6. Number 5 is the most recent entry, and number 5 is The Little Things, which I can't lie, I enjoyed watching, but as the film progressed, you became more and more apparent that it was a ripoff of 7, even though this technically was written before 7. But as it progressed, and you kind of realize that the mystery isn't that interesting, that the payoff is kind of a disappointment, you just kind of understand that watching this movie again, it would probably lessen the experience. Because, again, I was intrigued by it. When it began, I was intrigued by it. I know some people found it to be dull, but I was intrigued by it. Because although I was in the back of my mind saying this is a lot like 7, at the same time I was kind of like, well, what's the twist going to be for this? And then you actually see the twist and you're like, whatever. But the filmmaking for this is good. I did like the filmmaking for this. I thought it was very dreary in terms of the cinematography, which I liked. And I enjoyed the performance of what they were going for. Though I wasn't quite sure about Rami Malek's performance, and I love Rami Malek. But I just wasn't quite sure about his performance. But again, not a bad movie. It's just kind of middle of the road, unfortunately. It's definitely no 7. Thankfully, it's not number 7, though, in terms of this ranking. But, yeah, so that was my number 5. My number 4 is The Rookie, which, truth be told, I grew up watching this movie. I had seen this movie many times growing up. And I enjoy it. It's predictable, but at the same time, it's still well done. You know, with what it's going for, it is well done. And it is inspirational, too. Given as how Dennis Quaid does a great job in the lead role, it helps out a lot. It's definitely a feel-good movie. And I think on those fronts, it does work. And, you know, if you like sports, would definitely recommend this movie. It's not great, but it is enjoyable. And again, if you want to be inspired, watch this movie. So yeah, that's my number 4. Number 3 is Saving Mr. Banks, which I saw twice when it first came out, and then at the beginning of the pandemic, so like March, April of 2020, I finally revisited it after like 7-8 years. And this was a film that when I first saw it, made my top 10 list of 2013. No question about it. But upon a rewatch, I just kind of realized that although I enjoy the movie, I do think that there are aspects that it falls short of. Like, don't get me wrong, the score by Thomas Newman is great, which forgot to mention his score for The Little Things also is good. But his score for Saving Mr. Banks is so good, and I do like the cinematography, I do like the performances, but it does feel a little bit too much like it's jerking off Disney. Like, Disney wasn't the best of people, honestly. Obviously, that's a subjective thing to say, but he just really wasn't. Like, if you actually look him up and everything, it's kind of like, oh, well, but this movie makes it seem like he's a great individual. And I just kind of wish that it wasn't so, over the head with that. And it makes sense as to why they do that, because obviously it is a Walt Disney production, so it makes sense as to why they would be like, okay, we need to paint him in like a good picture. But it's not a bad film. Like, I'm not going to sit here and bash this movie. It's not bad. It's just conventional. It's got good filmmaking. I like Tom Hanks. I like Emma Thompson. They're enjoyable. They have good chemistry. But it does fall short a little bit. But I would still say it's a recommended film because it is enjoyable. So that's my number 3. My number 2 is The Founder, which for some reason I did not watch when it came out in, I believe it was January of 2017. I don't know why I didn't watch this movie. I think because I saw McDonald's and I was like, yeah, it's probably going to be dull. But over the years, I heard good things about this movie, and after watching it, I do enjoy this movie. I think that it's good because it puts perspective of the fast food industry and how, like, although it is fast food, it still was something that was revolutionary when it came out. And, now you look at it and it's like, well, it's something that's still here. And if anything, it obviously branched off past McDonald's, which is kind of crazy. I do think that it's a bit too reminiscent of The Social Network with what it's going for. And I do think that it could have been a bit more non-conventional in certain aspects. But obviously, if you like biopics, you'll dig this movie. But it's definitely a movie that it could have had a bit more meat, a bit more unconventional, aspects in terms of the biopic. But I am going to sit here and say that I did thoroughly enjoy this movie. It's no Social Network, as I said. I'm not going to watch this movie many times over. But watching it once, I enjoyed it very much so. It's definitely the best of this list, except there's one other movie that I like more. And I believe it was my first movie of his that I saw before I even knew who this director was. My number 1 is The Alamo, 2004. Look, if you haven't seen this movie, which, by the way, on Letterboxd, I'm following a little over 100 people, and nobody's seen this movie, I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't seen this movie, because it was a box office bomb. Critics hated it. It has like a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. Audiences didn't like it. A lot of people don't like it, but truth be told, and I know it's going to sound like, a bit biased, but truth be told, I grew up watching the original, the John Wayne version, and I was intrigued by the actual story of the Alamo. Like, I remember learning about the history of it and everything, and just kind of being so focused on that at a young age. And to this day, it's an interesting story. But once I saw the 2004 version, which I think I was like 12 or 13, that was the definitive version. And to be honest, I haven't revisited the John Wayne one since then, because the Alamo 2004 version is so accurate. It gets a lot right. There's a lot of attention to details. For crying out loud, the actual battle, again, not going to spoil anything, but the actual battle towards the end, in history, it does happen around 5 o'clock a.m. And guess what? In the movie, it happens at 5 a.m. In the John Wayne one, it happens at I'd say 2 p.m., in the middle of the day. And it's like, nah, it didn't happen. And they didn't, beat drums and everything. It was a surprise attack. So it's attention to details that I really liked and appreciate about this film. But more importantly, I liked how they really honestly humanized Davy Crockett. I mean, Davy Crockett is someone that's, larger than life. There's Disney movies and cartoons about him, and it's like, oh, he was amazing and everything. But then you see a movie like this and it humanizes him. It makes you actually care about him and understand that, maybe the legend outlived the human, and maybe we forgot about the actual human. And I think that was something that was really intriguing, because it really did showcase that he himself also has insecurities and that he himself also is kind of scared. And I liked that, honestly. Billy Bob Thornton did a great job. Also, this was the debut of Patrick Wilson, who I've always been a huge fan of, and I thought he was great as Buck Travis. So I like the acting. I like the, obviously the production design, the attention to details. I love the editing of the battle, especially the build-up to it. I think that surprise attack is so good. Do I wish this was R-rated? Obviously, yes. But at the same time, if it was R-rated, I probably wouldn't have seen it at such a young age. And if I didn't see it at such a young age, I probably would have missed out on this, because obviously for a lot of people as they get older, they look on Rotten Tomatoes or they look at reviews and everything, and they see it has such bad ratings, and they probably don't watch it, which probably explains why so many people haven't seen this. But I'm not going to sit here and say that this movie is for everyone. This is definitely a movie that's more towards people that like history. If you don't like history, I can't imagine you watching this movie and saying that like you like it. But for myself, I did find myself very invested in it, and I do like it. I've watched it recently too, just to see if it was like, that nostalgia-based, mentality, but it wasn't. The start of the pandemic, I watched it, and I was like, this is good. I mean, it's got Carter Burwell, one of his best scores, if you ask me. I think his score is amazing. It's got a satisfying ending that at the same time leaves room for interpretation. It's a well-done movie. It stinks that it's only on DVD. I want it to be on Blu-ray. Heck, I would love to see it on 4K, but alas, here we are, just with the DVD of, a good movie. But anyways, John Lee Hancock, I try to always talk about the director afterwards, about what I like about him and whatnot. What I will say about John Lee Hancock is that he's not a bad director. He's not. He's just a director that is workmanlike. He's a director that studios put towards and say, listen, can you do this? And he does it. He doesn't really have a style, to be honest. Like, with all of his movies, there's not like a style where I was able to pinpoint, other than that he is intrigued by based on true story movies. That's the only thing I can really pinpoint. He does like Thomas Newman. Thomas Newman was in like 3 or 4 of his movies that he did the score for. But besides that, there's no real consistency other than that. Is he a bad director? No, he's not. He's an average director, but it happens to be that he has one movie that I actually really like, and that's The Alamo. But John Lee Hancock, if you've seen his films, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and rank his work, obviously, down below. And also, who else do you guys want me to rank? I've been keeping a list on Letterboxd for, all these directors I still need to do. But, guys, also, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget the subscription, notification bell, and I'll catch you guys later.